This training video is designed to explain the systematic process to implement the ErgoAnalyst Participative Ergonomics system. I'm Gary Dennis, the Managing Director of Ergo Enterprises and one of the creators of ErgoAnalyst. In order to successfully implement the system, it is critically important that we first understand the specific steps involved in identifying, assessing, controlling, and reviewing the risk associated with hazardous manual tasks, and how to use the ErgoAnalyst software to facilitate this process. Whilst this video is designed to be as specific as possible about the steps required to implement ErgoAnalyst, it can be difficult to address every issue that may occur for every business in this video. So, if at the end of this course you still have any questions about how to implement the system, please feel free to contact us, as we're always here to help. The main goal of this video is to enable ErgoAnalyst facilitators to systematically and successfully implement the ErgoAnalyst system to develop controls that not only reduce the risk of injury, but also improve workplace performance by improving productivity, enabling greater staff diversity, and maintaining a more sustainable workforce. By the end of this presentation, you should understand the principles and benefits of participative ergonomics, the key features of the ErgoAnalyst system that are based on these fundamentals of participative ergonomics, and how to implement the four-step ErgoAnalyst process to identify hazardous manual tasks, assess the risk of injury, or indeed the potential for a task to improve health, use the participative process to develop and implement quantifiably effective controls, and review any residual risk, and then generate and share the visual one-page ErgoAnalyst reports that effectively communicate the risk reduction and productivity improvements associated with the control. ErgoAnalyst is based on a participative ergonomics framework. So let's start by defining what participative ergonomics actually is. Whilst occupational ergonomics programs are designed to identify and correct factors that negatively impact the health and performance of workers, a participative approach to ergonomics focuses on maximizing the involvement of workers as task experts to achieve this outcome. The participative approach is characterized by the formalized inclusion of workers in the process. The idea behind their inclusion is that they know more about their workplace than anybody else, and thus we can harness the existing knowledge within the business by allowing them to provide valuable input into the assessment and control of risks in their workplace. However, the workers cannot implement this change on their own. To create positive change in the business does require the input of four key groups, each with their own unique expertise. These four groups involved in the participative ergonomics approach are the operational staff, who have real hands-on experience with the manual tasks being assessed and who need to take ownership of the controls once implemented to ensure they are truly adopted. Managers, including supervisors, who must support the process by enabling assessments to be conducted and controls to be implemented. The ErgoAnalyst facilitators, who understand the participative ergonomics process and can provide expert guidance to facilitate the identification, assessment, and control processes. And finally, when appropriate, the inclusion of manufacturers or suppliers with their expert understanding of the equipment available can help ensure that the controls are effective and implemented in a timely manner. Participative ergonomics is a collaborative approach that functions on the belief that if each of these groups contributes their skills to the process, then the whole workplace will be better off. However, unless everyone is actively involved, then the success of the participative ergonomics system cannot be assured. Therefore, obtaining the understanding and buy-in from each of these groups is essential, particularly during the early stages of the program. We've developed tools to help you get this buy-in from each of these groups. So let us know if you'd like some help. The ErgoAnalyst system has been designed to be a systematic process to harness the existing knowledge in the business and focus it on developing controls that make quantifiable improvements to risk and performance, and then enable those improvements to be shared with other ErgoAnalyst members so they can learn from each other. In order to achieve this aim, the ErgoAnalyst software has been built on the 3 E's: easy, engaging, and effective, in that it is quick and simple to use, visually based so that anyone can understand it, and outcome focused, where most of the effort is directed at using the risk assessments to develop effective solutions. The main aspects of the ErgoAnalyst software include a secure, centralized risk register so that all information on any task is easy to access for any authorized user within the business. Analysis tools that calculate both the acute and cumulative injury risks, and which also help develop effective controls. The ability to quantitatively evaluate control options to choose the solutions with the best risk and productivity outcomes. Deliver visual one-page reports that effectively communicate the risks and productivity that is associated with tasks, jobs, or indeed across the entire business. And provide an extensive database of solutions so that ErgoAnalyst members can learn from each other, rather than having to start from scratch every time they want to improve a manual task within the business. There are 4 basic steps involved in implementing the ErgoAnalyst process. The first of which is to identify hazardous manual tasks. As well as entering the name of the manual task into the ErgoAnalyst task list, this step also involves screening tasks to determine if they are hazardous, collecting appropriate data, and prioritizing the tasks to determine which ones need to be addressed first. Next, these prioritized tasks can be assessed in ErgoAnalyst by analyzing the hazards and evaluating the risks of injury. The effect and interaction of subtasks within the main task can also be evaluated within this step. The control phase of the process involves the preparation and delivery of the Participative Ergonomics Control Development Workshop, and then the subsequent evaluation of the potential controls developed in this workshop, and the selection and implementation of the most effective controls. Finally, once the control has been implemented, it should be reviewed and reassessed to ensure it is effective before developing the ErgoAnalyst snapshot report, and then, if appropriate, sharing it with the wider ErgoAnalyst community. This process can also be sped up by first searching for pre-existing controls after a hazardous manual task has been identified. In this way, the ErgoAnalyst process can be a cycle that both provides and generates a continuous flow of improvements across the business. Whilst this process can be relatively simple to implement once it is well grounded within the organisation, it does typically require initial training and effective consultation with management, staff and industry to become a business as usual process. Again, please feel free to contact us if you want to achieve this level of adoption across the business, as we have developed many tools, including the flagship EA launch program, to help you achieve this aim. Before embarking on the implementation of the ErgoAnalyst system, or any participative ergonomics process for that matter, it is essential that appropriate training is first undertaken. The primary objective of training is to ensure that everyone who is going to be involved in identifying, assessing, and/or controlling manual task risks can effectively contribute to the participative ergonomics process. There is 2 main types of training that are important. The first is training provided to operational and managerial staff. This training should include topics such as the purpose of participative ergonomics, the 5 factors that can cause injury, the hierarchy of controls, and how they can be involved in the ErgoAnalyst process. As part of ErgoAnalyst membership, we provide materials with presenters notes that facilitators can use to deliver this basic training. Or we can develop a customized training video that can be used to reliably deliver this training in greater detail, as we've done for many companies across a wide range of industries. We've also helped various businesses develop customized awareness and educational materials specific to their business. If you would like to know more about this customized training for your business, then just let us know. It is also very important that the people who are going to facilitate the implementation of the ErgoAnalyst system undergo more in-depth ErgoAnalyst facilitator training. Some of the basic facilitator training can be done via the 3 online training courses, of which this current video is one of them. But it is highly recommended that facilitators, especially if new to ErgoAnalyst, get more in-depth training by attending one of the various training courses that can be delivered either directly or via video conferencing. Again, just let us know if you'd like to attend one of these courses and we can get you the relevant information. The primary objective of the first identification phase is to identify and prioritize the potentially hazardous manual tasks and schedule them for assessment and control workshops. The first step in the identification phase is determining how these tasks are going to be identified. If you already have a detailed register of potentially hazardous manual tasks, this is a great place to start. Or perhaps you have a comprehensive understanding of the manual tasks undertaken at your workplace from regular observation and interactions with operational staff. If not, these tasks will have to be identified through either informal discussions with the workers or via a formalized hazard identification tool, which you can find in the resources section of the members area on the ErgoAnalyst website. To help explain the process involved in identifying, assessing, and controlling risks associated with manual tasks, an example of a hazardous manual task that involves laying BITAC tape during road construction is going to be used, as shown in the top right-hand corner of the slide. Before going any further, one of the first things you should do is search your ErgoAnalyst database of tasks to determine if the task has already been identified or risk assessed anywhere else in the business. If it has, then you can use this previous task, and if not, you can then add it to your task list. If you're not sure if this task is potentially hazardous, you can always use the ErgoAnalyst screening tool, which can also be found in the Members Resources section of the website. If any of the conditions described on the screening tool are met by the task, then it can be identified as a hazardous manual task. The next step is to collect the relevant data, which should be done in collaboration with the staff who perform the task. It is very important that you collect the right data so that you can accurately assess the task. So, to help you collect the correct data, we have developed a 2-page data collection form that you can find on the subsequent pages after the screening tool. Once you've collected this data, enter it into the task description area on the Identify page of ErgoAnalyst. This task description should summarize the main points associated with the task. This is also the text that will be included in the snapshot. So to help you keep it concise, a character countdown is also provided in the top right-hand corner of the task description text box. Additional information beyond this character count should typically be entered into the Notes section. Videos, pictures, or other relevant files can be attached to the task by uploading them in the Attachments section. You should also rename these files so that they give a relevant description of the video or file. I like to put the word before or after at the start of this file to help identify it as related to the way the task was or the way it is now once it's an implemented control. Finally, you should identify the workplace where the task takes place so that it can be easily found later on. You can also add other assessors too, if you wish to work collaboratively on this task with other ErgoAnalyst facilitators within your business. Before moving on to the risk assessment, you should also ensure that you set the priority level for this task, which indicates if the task needs to be addressed imminently. This priority should be set not just on the level of risk, but also based upon the number of staff who are exposed to the task, how regularly it's performed, the potential for controls to be implemented, and if injuries have previously been associated with this task. A risk assessment must be comprised of both an analysis of the hazards or task factors and an evaluation of the risk, which indicates the consequence and probability of an injury occurring. Unless both an analysis and an evaluation are conducted, then it is not a risk assessment. For example, checklists do not evaluate the risks and therefore are not risk assessment tools. In the case of the task involving the BITAC tape, the analysis of the hazards is given on the left-hand side of the ErgoAnalyst risk assessment tool, and the evaluation of the risks is automatically calculated by ErgoAnalyst and displayed on the right, where green represents a low risk level and red represents a very high level of injury risk. The graphs below each of the acute and cumulative thermal body maps represent the same risk level as on the figures, just with more precision. The first step in the analysis of the task is to determine if the task needs to be broken up into subtasks. For example, in this case, there are two subtasks associated with rolling out the tape and unloading the next tape from the box. It is also very important that you give each subtask a percentage of time comprised of the overall task, which adds up to a total of 100%. There are various environmental factors that need to be considered and included in the analysis on the relevant organisational, cognitive, or environmental factors associated with the task. A whole body vibration app is also available to help you quantify the level of vibration if appropriate. Next, start the physical analysis by selecting a body part for exertion. A pop-up box giving relevant descriptions of green, yellow, orange, or red levels of exertion will appear. Select the relevant colour and ErgoAnalyst will colour that body part appropriately. Continue to select each body part for exertion until each of the 4 parts of the body are coloured. Then move to the next factor, posture, again colouring all body parts before moving on to movement and then finally exposure. All body parts must be coloured, that is, no body part should be left blue. You can also colour the left and right sides of the body independently by clicking on the asymmetrical button if you wish. Whilst it is highly recommended that you attend a practical ErgoAnalyst training course to help you assess the risks appropriately, you can also access the help menus by clicking on the question marks associated with each task factor. Once the analysis has been completed, you can then evaluate the level of risk to determine if risk controls are required. Generally, if any of the acute or cumulative body parts on the right show an orange or red level of risk, then that task should be prioritised for a control development workshop to control that risk. If the risk level is yellow, then that task should have controls developed, if possible, once the higher priority tasks have been addressed. And then finally, if all of the body parts for the acute and cumulative risks are green, then that task should typically be considered to be occupational exercise, which is more likely to improve health than lead to musculoskeletal injury. The most important part of any ergonomics process is the control phase. Unless controls are implemented that reduce the risk of injury, then no change has been made. So in fact, the main purpose of risk assessments is to help guide the control development process. There are two parts of the control phase. The first is developing controls, which will be discussed on this slide. And the second is implementing controls, which will be discussed on the following slide. The first step in developing effective controls is preparing for the Participative Ergonomics Control Development Workshop. There are two PowerPoint slides that need to be generated for this workshop. The first is the task description slide, and the second is the risk to control slide. The template for both of these slides, plus the extra training slide with full presenter's notes, can be found in the resources section of the members areas of the ErgoAnalyst website. The task description on the first slide can be copied directly from the task description text that was entered on the Identify page. Whilst the visual representation of the risk, that is, the thermal body map figures on the left-hand side of the second slide, can be generated by taking a screen capture of the snapshot report in the report section of the software. The risk to control questions are designed to help direct the development of controls that are specific causes of the injury risks. For example, in this case, how can we lay the tape without an awkward posture on the back is directly related to the orange colour on the back for posture. It is very important that copies of these two slides are given to all the participants that are scheduled to be part of the Control Development Workshop before the workshop, so that they have time to process the information and come to the workshop prepared and ready to develop effective controls. This is a critical step and will ensure that the workshop is both time efficient and develops effective controls. The next step is to actually facilitate the Control Development Workshop. As with any workshop that is being facilitated, you should start the meeting with introductions, setting the agenda and rules for the workshop. Next, if appropriate, give some basic training on the 5 causes of musculoskeletal injury. The Control Development Workshop PowerPoint template in the Members Resources area of the website has a slide that you can use with full presenter's notes to help deliver this training if you wish. Or we can develop a short customized training video that you can play at the start of the workshop to ensure that the content and delivery is consistent. Once that's completed, present the task description slide, which summarizes how and why the task is performed, and the relevant environmental and physical factors that need to be addressed to reduce the risk of injury. If the people in the workshop don't have any major concerns with this task summary slide, then move on to present the risk control slide. Point out the main factors on the thermal body maps that cause the potential for injury before presenting the risk factors to control questions that raise the specific factors that need to be controlled. At this point of the workshop, you can ask the workshop attendees to raise any potential control ideas that address these specific risks to control questions as part of a brainstorming session. List all of these ideas on a whiteboard without evaluating or judging them. Once all these ideas have been listed, then facilitate an open discussion until the most appropriate controls have been selected. At the end of this workshop, it is very important that action plans to implement these controls are developed and recorded. Two other points that can help get results from these workshops that you may want to consider. First, if appropriate, the equipment that is being assessed or potentially implemented as a control can be brought along to the workshop so that staff can have a hands-on experience with this equipment. Second, whilst these workshops are often conducted only with internal staff, there are some tasks that will require input from manufacturers and/or suppliers of equipment. In these cases, it can be appropriate to invite these manufacturers into the workshop. In fact, we have done this many times ourselves with competing manufacturers in the same workshop, which has not only resulted in better controls, but also decreased the financial costs required to develop or procure this equipment. Again, if you'd like to know more about how to run these more advanced workshops, then please contact us for more information. The next and most important step in the process is implementing the controls developed in the control development workshop. In the example case of laying BITAC tape, the implemented control involved a manufacturer building a customized trolley that simultaneously laid the tape and collected the backing whilst the person pushed it with an upright posture. This became known as the roll runner trolley. Once the details of the proposed control have been developed, they should be summarized in the control description area on the control page of ErgoAnalyst. This control description is also the text that will be put into the one-page ErgoAnalyst snapshot report. So it would be best just to summarize the control in this area and put any additional information in the notes section. The completed buttons to signify the date when the control was proposed and implemented can also be found under the control description text box. So make sure you click these buttons after completing either the proposed or implemented control phases so that these dates are recorded in the task list on the Identify page. When you first enter the control assessment area of this task for the first time, the risk assessment will be pre-populated with the same colors as the original risk assessment. So all you have to do is alter this risk assessment to reflect the task factors that you believe would be present if the proposed control was implemented. The right-hand side will then display the quantified risk reduction for each body part that should be achieved upon implementation of that control. As well as the risk assessment of the proposed control, a productivity analysis can also be done to determine how much financial benefit can be achieved by implementing the control. An essential part of implementing a control is to develop an action plan with responsibilities and timelines. This information should be entered into the action plan area, and a due date reminder can be set to email the appropriate person if the action plan has not been completed by its due date. As part of the business case to implement the control, an ErgoAnalyst snapshot of the task and the potential control can be generated in the report section and printed out as a PDF document. This visual one-page snapshot can be particularly useful to strengthen the business case, both in terms of risk reduction and productivity improvements, to get the potential control implemented. Finally, ensure that you tenaciously follow up on the control until it is actually implemented. Remember, all the previous steps of assessing risks and facilitating workshops are only of relevance if the control is actually implemented. Once the control is implemented and is working within the workplace for a period of time, it is then important that you review the control and finalize the documentation. First, review the risk assessment of the control and update it if it's different from what you thought it would be initially. Next, set the action plan to 100% in the action plan area. To finalize the documentation in ErgoAnalyst, ensure that you click the completed button to signify that the control has been successfully implemented. This also records the implemented date in the task list. This step is essential for this control to be included in the job and workplace analysis reports. You should also complete the documentation associated with this task by generating the finalized one-page ErgoAnalyst snapshot report and saving it to a local drive. Finally, you may want to consider sharing this control with the wider ErgoAnalyst community, so other members can benefit from your work. Just let us know if you would like to share the control, and we'll take care of the rest by reviewing the task and developing a validated snapshot to share on the solutions page. Whilst there may seem like a lot of steps to remember in the identification, assessment, control, and review processes, after a couple of times doing it, they will just become second nature. We have also developed a 2-page cheat sheet document that leads you through each step. This document, as shown on the screen, can be found in the Members Resources section of the ErgoAnalyst website. So if you're ever wondering what you're to do next, this document will help you get the process done in a reliable and effective manner. One important consideration before embarking on a participative ergonomics program like ErgoAnalyst is how are you going to determine if the program is headed in the right direction, and by what criteria are you going to consider it to be successful. One obvious measure is the prevalence and severity of injury rates. While this is probably a good indicator in the long term, in the short term, factors like a transitory workforce, changing work environment, and the long tail of common law claims can make it difficult to use it to measure success. The other side of ergonomics is to use productivity measures. Again, this may be a good measure in the long term, but factors such as staff turnover, changing work sites, and work methods can make it more difficult to accurately quantify productivity changes in the short term. Whilst these two quantitative measures are important, qualitative measures such as improved communication between staff, supervisors, and management, and improvements in the culture and morale of the workers should not be underestimated. However, all of these measures are lag indicators that occur as a result of a change in the workplace environment. So, one of the best indicators of whether an ergonomics program is going in the right direction is the quality and quantity of controls that have been implemented. If high quality control measures are being put in place, it is a sure sign that there are already improvements in the culture of the workplace, and productivity and injury improvements are already occurring or are on their way. If all you do is measure success by the current rate of injuries in the workplace, you are forgetting to look at the real causes of injury for the future. In other words, be proactive and look at the root cause of the problem, that is the workplace environment, not reactive by just examining the signs and symptoms such as lost time injury frequency rates. Whilst task analysis is a great way to improve the workplace environment, most operational staff do a multitude of tasks. So, to determine the real risk profile for a working group, an ErgoAnalyst job analysis should be performed in the report section of the software. By selecting multiple tasks and the relative percentage of time each task takes, ErgoAnalyst can combine all of the tasks and their subtasks to determine the overall risk of injury to those workers and productivity profile for that job. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, ErgoAnalyst can be used to help benchmark the risks across the business and predict future injury rates and productivity improvements by periodically generating a workplace report across any section of the business or indeed for the entire enterprise. In one page, this visual workplace report can indicate how active the business has been at proactively managing musculoskeletal injury risks, what productivity improvements have been achieved, and quantifying the past and current risk profiles, which can be used to forecast future injury rates. The workplace report can be a very powerful tool if used effectively, and should be part of the regular business reporting systems. Please let us know if you'd like to learn more about how to get the most out of these analysis reports. This presentation was designed to give you a greater understanding of the step-by-step process to implement ErgoAnalyst in your business. In essence, this training forms part of the knowledge pathway of the ErgoAnalyst system. However, it is difficult to cover every aspect of the system in a training video. So, if you do have further questions, or if you want to attend one of the new training courses to become an accredited ErgoAnalyst facilitator, please feel free to contact us. However, training in and of itself only has the potential to change the risks within the business. To truly make a difference, the increased awareness and benchmarking of the risk profile across the business, developing practical assessments and facilitation skills, and being mentored through the first solutions are also equally important. And these are all part of the integrated ErgoAnalyst launch program, which is designed to fast-track injury reductions and productivity improvements across the business through an efficient and proven process. Please contact us if you want to know more, and we can send you the relevant information. And remember, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly, until you learn to do it well.